Welcome to the Resonate Church Missoula podcast. This podcast exists to equip and encourage the members of Resonate Church to get the gospel to people, people to community, and community to mission. Thanks for listening.
Have you heard any of the stuff going on in Moscow with Foxhole nowadays?
Yeah, I mean, I really just hear stories. I feel like, I'm almost 5 years away from living in Moscow and knowing anybody other than staff and postgrads. And it sounds like what's going on at Foxhole is bigger and better and more holy than anything we had ever done. So it's exciting to see a resurgence of something that was such a pivotal aspect of my college experience and really like my discipleship experience. It's for sure an aspect of the lifeblood of what I still breathe. I mean, I got the one-line Fox written on my hand right now. I doodle it all the time and think about the implications of the kind of lifestyle we lived. I had a conversation with a guy in Reno last week, and we were talking about the different times in a person's life where not getting very much sleep is possible and, kind of thrive, not just survive. And really there's only two situations in which that actually happens. And one of them is really high stress. So you think of like wartime scenarios, people, they don't really need to sleep. It will catch up with them eventually. And then the other time is times of like just immense joy where you don't want to be asleep. You'd rather be doing anything other than sleeping. And that was college and that was Foxhole for me. So I was notorious as the guy who would fall asleep anywhere and everywhere and couldn't wake up. And it's because I didn't want to be asleep. So stayed up way too late and got up early to try to take care of responsibilities. And so I miss it. And I'm glad to hear it's better than it's ever been. And I'm hopeful that young men will catch a vision for it in Reno one day and see it take off, and the groundwork that we laid and the materials you produced and stuff comes into effect in later generations.
Yeah. It feels like guys have to see it to catch it. I've tried for so many years in Missoula to cast a vision for it, tell them about it, show them the documents, and it's just so hard to buy in until you've seen it. Yeah. And so our breakthrough last year was we just sent a bunch of our guys to Foxhole in Moscow
to go see it.
Yeah, to go see it for a weekend, and they came back and they're like, "We'll do it. We'll do whatever it takes to get this thing going," because it's so different from you can't imagine it from the outside. You can't. The stories don't do it justice. You can't picture it in real life. Yeah.
It's like the first time you travel outside of the U.S. and you hear stories about different parts of the world, but until you have seen the sights, smelled the smells, tasted the food, you don't really know what people are talking about. Right. And I think it's the same way there. Like our Foxhole experience is probably the clearest, modern representation of the way I imagine the Acts 2 church lived in the first century played out in modern day. And I don't know that that's, sustainable across any other demographic to that extreme, but why not run that fast in college?
Right. And that was our thought in college. We're not going to be able to do this forever. Why don't we run as hard as we can now? So we were saying the other day, we had people in our homes 6 days a week. We were making dinner for big crowds 6 days a week, big events 6 days a week, until all hours of the night. Finally, we had to make house rules about like at 3 a.m. you got to kick everybody out because it's too late for girls to be in your living room. But so 6 days a week, we got people over, and the seventh day is house meetings. And we invited a bunch of guys that didn't live in the house to join house meetings. And those were the longest nights of the whole week. Yeah. So it's just like there was for 3 years, I lived in the house for 3 years. There was no break. There was never a break in the action. Right. And we never wanted a break.
Right. Well, yeah. Some didn't.
Yeah.
Some people.
Some guys wanted a break.
Some people with a lack of the same kind of vision, it became, the worst nightmare for them. They never could find freedom from it. Yeah. So that's that's an ethic in and of itself, like the vision-led alignment regarding that. But it's true for me. It was the best times. Right. It was amazing. And what's even better for me now is my wife got to experience almost the same thing with a group of girls. And it changed the way we approach marriage. It has changed the way that we have raised a family and owned a home. Right. You've
had roommates since you lived?
We've had roommates from, the before the first day that we lived in our own home, we had roommates that lived there, and we've continued to do that up until now, almost 5 years later.
Yeah. Yeah, we had roommates for the first 3-4 years of our marriage. Yeah, it does change everything. Like you said, I mean, you're years out and you're still drawing the doodle on your hand, thinking about it every day. I'm similar. I think about it all the time in a way that's almost weird.
Yeah.
If a random guy told you, I think about the college days I'm 30 years old and I think about the college days.
You tell him to move on for sure.
Yeah, but what we experienced was so unique.
Yeah.
And so different. So I think what the Moscow guys are doing now is, I mean, it's really encouraging to me because we know. So I led the house for a handful of years. You took over immediately after me and led for a few years after that. And then there was kind of a down period after maybe a couple other guys led for a short period of time. And then it almost died. And we brought it back from the brink of death, from the clutches of death.
Yeah.
We rescued it.
Well, I think it took a resurgence of guys who heard the stories and thought, why can't that be us too?
Well, we should just tell that story. If this is for current Foxhole guys or my guys at Firewatch or your guys who might want to start a ministry house, tell the story of the Foxhole retreat. What was our tactic coming into that? The guys that we blasted are not going to hear this podcast, so that's true.
I think pretty much the critique was to call a spade and talk about the lack of shared vision around the innate sacrificial and really the key of what the lifestyle choices that we were living under were. So much like a lot of things, like the individualism, the my space is my space, there was more and more boundaries put up and more individualism entered in, that a couple of very strong-willed, like high potential leader kind of guys with a separate vision came in and took the house in a totally different direction.
Right. Yeah, so this was like probably year 5 or 6 of Foxhole.
I'd say so.
After our era, and we had kind of moved. I had moved away. I was in Missoula.
Yeah.
You were out of the house and out of the system.
Yep.
But we could just see it's going downhill rapidly, and if we kind of decided we need to make one last ditch effort to try to resurrect this thing, or else it's going under. And
and you can only make an appeal to the way things once were for so long before no one wants to listen to you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So we called a retreat. All the Foxhole guys in all of history were invited, and we got together. And I remember vividly that session. So we have all the old guys that have graduated out of Foxhole that think of it fondly like you and I do.
Right.
And then we have the current class who are
all fighting.
A bunch of pieces of work who are fighting against it and hate what we built. And then strategically, we invited the freshmen who want to move into Foxhole the next year. And the whole session was rip on the current guys in front of the freshmen so that they know I never want to be like those guys.
Right.
And it was there's some pretty straight talk.
Yeah. And I'll say too, to some of those guys' credit, not all of them responded poorly.
Yeah.
A number of them, I'm recalling the memories now. I haven't thought about this in a long time, but a lot of them, they didn't really have any rebuttal. Yeah. It was no, you're right. This isn't what we even signed up for. Mm-hmm. And so that was encouraging on the outset, but it's proven itself to come back, and the leadership is, like you've said, better now than it was in our time. Yeah.
And I think the pivotal, just to name names and give credit where it's due, the pivotal guy after that era was Caden Coddington.
Absolutely. Yeah.
He took it over after those guys had almost killed it, and he brought it back better than we ever had it. I mean, we had some years of just unbelievably high effectiveness fruit in the house. But when you examine the details of how we were living, we were not.
Oh, for sure.
We weren't behaving ourselves very well.
No.
And so the guys today are, they're seeing pretty incredible fruit in Moscow as well. But when you get into the details of how they're living and how they're running the house, it's much more like what you would think a Christian men's ministry house would look like.
Than absolutely. Yeah, we were a little unhinged and raw and had a lot of leadership potential and probably too much influence within the community for how unholy we were for a number of those years. And those guys they're a lot more cleaned up. And
well, we were in, I was, as the leader of the house for a couple of years, I was in active rebellion against the church, against Resonate. Like, not enough to want to leave Resonate, but I was just in that early, sophomore, junior, arrogant phase where I thought I knew all the better strategies than Resonate. And so these guys don't know what they're doing. I'm going to start my own thing and it's going to be better.
And I was holding on to your shoulders with my eyes closed, following you all over the place.
So thankfully God brought me through that season before I had ruined too many people's lives. And helped me see that where this thing really gets powerful is when it comes under the authority of the church and the expertise of the leaders in the church and becomes kind of a symbiotic relationship. And so then it started to get, there were some good years after that where the Resonate pastor and staff would like utilize Foxhole as part of their strategy intentionally.
Right.
Instead of, for the first couple of years, it was like, well, Resonate's going to plan their Halloween party, and then Foxhole's going to do everything it can to pull everyone away from the Resonate party
to the bigger, better house party. Yeah.
That gets shut down in 10 minutes.
That
was too loud.
Silly of us to want to be the focal point of the community. It's ironic now thinking about guys in our churches and the headache that they would cause us as pastors if they were trying to do the same thing. And so, it's only God's grace and kindness to us that's not the case, and that, we were able to see through to the other side.
Yeah. I've actually had at least one guy that comes to mind, but it might be two guys that I've seen in them some of the stuff that I remember in me when I was a sophomore. Some of the arrogant, rebellious, obstinate thing, trying to go their own way, but being pretty influential as they do it. And I've had staff members or people in my church, owners who are trying to lead these guys, come to me, what do we do with this guy? He's causing all these problems. And I've surprised them before by saying, like, that's actually a good thing. I'm encouraged by that. Like that,
weather the storm.
He's showing some good signs here. If we can get him to resist, like if we can get him to stay in the system until he gets through this little immaturity phase, he's going to be a really strong leader. But I think a lot of churches, they see that guy and they immediately think he's a problem. He's a detractor. He's going to be an issue in our church. So they kick him out too early, when really I think you got to let those guys ride a little bit and
absolutely
let them grow out of it.
Yeah. I think there's a difference between good leadership and strong leadership.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of bad leaders that are really strong leaders that are leading people in bad places. And I think, especially in the age we live in, where most young men don't want anything to do with responsibility, the guy that wants to lead is an encouragement if you can get him to submit to the lordship of Christ, to see, the value of the church and God's intentional means of using the church for his missional end. Right. And redirect them, as opposed to try to spark life in somebody that hasn't had a fire
It's
before.
way easier to take a natural influencer and give him positive vision and Christian character than it is to take a really good Christian guy and make him influential.
Yeah, I 100%
as a pastor,
agree with
I'm
that.
always looking for just influence, like what guys are actually, who are guys following? Who's the linchpin in this community? Because if you can get him, you're going to get a bunch of guys after him.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if you run him off, you're going to lose all those guys.
Right.
So I think, going back to Caden, I think Caden was one of those guys, and thankfully he came in mature beyond his years and didn't go through the same arrogant, immature phase that I certainly had to.
Yeah.
So he led it well, and now he's out. He's graduated through, and there's some other guys leading it. I was over in Moscow a couple weeks ago, and I went to a house meeting, which was pretty funny. I don't know hardly any of these guys now, but went to a house meeting, and it was just cool seeing what, our house meetings were. They were rowdy, but they were also like very intentional. We built strategies and things that we do together intentionally.
Yeah.
And it was cool to see how those have adapted over the last 8 or 10 years.
Yeah.
and some of the core stuff is still the same, but then, like I said, they're a lot more cleaned up than we were back in the day. There's a lot more encouragement and gentle correction and forgiveness and apologies, and a lot less yelling and name calling and banging on the walls and physically assaulting people.
Yeah. We coined a term back in the day that is not a good thing, but it was sanctification by verbal abuse. Right. And that was a lot of our house meetings.
Right.
Is,
we're going to rip on this guy for 10 minutes until he straightens himself out.
Absolutely. Yep. But, you know, to the heart behind all of that, we're doing an earnest job of attempting to obey all that Christ has commanded, and to do so in a very clearly defined way, which, I mean, has been immensely valuable to me. Mm-hmm. And we had a men's boot camp not long ago in Reno, and I talked with the guys a lot about waging war against sin. Mm-hmm. And you think about like wartime analogies and guys being shoulder to shoulder together in the trenches. And we have to realize, like, there is a level of violence that should be warranted when we're trying to make change, especially men amongst men. Right. Like ironing, sharpening iron is a really violent thing. Right. And so I don't condone
sparks and
So I don't condone, all of our methodology, but there was a reason why it produced some really good things in us throughout that process.
Right. And I didn't offer any correction to the current Foxhole guys, but I did jump in a couple times to try to illustrate, like, you guys needed to push harder on that guy. Mm-hmm. You were very kind. You were very gentle. You said some of the right things, but that guy needs to be pushed right now. His iron is pretty rough, and he needs some iron to strike against him. And so I think this is one of the areas that sometimes, like, the American church is predominated by feminine dispositions, feminine virtues. And so we
nurturing.
Yeah. So we tend to think that the Christian character is always going to be gentle and nurturing and kind and compassionate and soft and all of which is true in a feminine system, mm-hmm. but there needs to be, and in a mixed group system, in a mixed group setting, that probably needs to be a predominant characteristic that is displayed. But men need a space that is absent the feminine vibe. They need a space that is only men, and they're treated like men by other men in that space. And so many men don't have anything like that.
Well, and we're fooled by this idea that the world is soft, mm-hmm. because our world has gone soft in a lot of ways, but life is not soft. Right. So what better of a place for young men to learn, like the wages of sin, the difficulty of life, the challenging task of responsibility that is inevitably coming for them. Right. What better way to learn that than in the trenches, in the foxhole, in the the space away from warfare, to be trained up to share in camaraderie, to be built up for the task at hand. So I think there's a level of violence due in those spaces.
Yeah, like you said, what better place to experience the violence than with brothers who love you, rather than exposed to the world that might hate you. Right. So I remember a time, we could probably think of a million stories like this, but I remember particularly a time that we're in a house meeting and one of the guys confessed to something that was not only sinful, but like illegal and wicked far beyond a normal confession.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
And I'm sure you remember my response.
Oh, I do.
It was physical threat. It was like, I'm going to impose force on you here so that the policeman doesn't do it next time. Like, I want to scare you so badly that you knock this off, because next time's going to be way worse. Yeah. It's going to be somebody that doesn't love you, doesn't want the best for you. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to physically threaten you very seriously and strongly. Yeah. I'll try to leave it vague, but...
Yeah. Well, brother, if you're listening, you know exactly who you are.
Yeah. If you were in the room that night, you know You know what we're talking about.
Yeah, well, even maybe a lighter example that needed some like real restraint and physical stuff was another time with another brother who was just out of his mind emotionally, completely untethered, and what started off as playful wrestling turned into a fit of rage.
Right.
And I remember, me and you and a couple other guys holding this guy down, and he might be listening to this.
He might.
Yeah. And
yeah, he's still around.
Yeah. And he's really grown up. He's quite the man these days.
Man.
And
but he wasn't then.
No, he wasn't.
Was a 19-year-old boy, totally out of control.
Yep. And he knew it too in the moment. And I think he probably looks back on that moment with some, embarrassment. You don't want to be in that position, but also some like heartfelt love for that moment. Like that's a core memory for me. And as a guy who led him, and the depths that we were willing to go with one another in regards to a discipleship relationship and fighting for the future. So there's some good times.
Yeah,
I forget
remember
about
when
a lot of those
in
memories.
that fit, because I was wrestling him.
Yeah.
And I remember when I could sense, oh, he's not wrestling, he's out of control. He's trying to kill me. And I was bigger than him, and I'm a wrestler and stuff, and so I wasn't too worried. But I stopped all movement. I just sat still, and like, we're gonna see if this guy can kill me from behind, and if he can't, he's gonna lose his mind and move on. And he did. He spent a few seconds really trying to choke me to death. And,
and then he had some real choice
words
for me.
And, me and you. Yeah, those are pivotal moments when you. And it's that kind of thing that could and should never happen outside of a male only space.
Oh, absolutely.
The guys need that kind of thing.
Oh, and that was a very bonding moment. Like I don't think we walked away from that moment any further apart than we had ever been.
Yeah. Or at least by the end of that night.
Yeah.
It might have taken a little bit of time.
If we would have left a little earlier, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, so some special memories for sure, and some things that if I could go back, I would have hoped to cast better vision for the guys that came after us, and we thought we knew what we were doing. We did not know what we were doing, but God used a lot of the things we did, and some really good stuff came out of it.
Yeah. I was thinking it might be helpful for us to share maybe a couple of our favorite stories, just for fun, and then maybe a couple of our biggest regrets, if we could go back and change some of the stuff we did early on. Maybe we'll do regrets first. The stories will be a lot more fun to tell.
Yeah, stories are easy to think of. Most of them aren't really that like long-term significant, but I could think of some really fun.
Right off the top of my head, I got 20 of them that are they'll be with me forever. I early on, so I'll share a regret from early on. So I started the house my sophomore year. You were a freshman that year.
Yep.
Started it with some sophomore buddies, and I was at the peak of my energy and drive and conviction, but I was also at the very beginning of my actual leadership aptitude, or leadership maturity. And so one of my regrets is how strong I came in on those guys. We all kind of said, yeah, let's live together, and it'd be cool if we hosted an event there once in a while. And then I created a standard that none of them had really agreed to, and then held them rigidly to that standard. And some of them stepped up into it, and a few of them are still good friends today, but the majority did not respond well at all. And so thankfully we had a freshman class, you and Jerry and Brennan and some other guys that were around and became part of it quick enough that you kind of filled in the gaps.
Right.
But we also had some house members that quickly exited the strategy. They weren't bought in. They were actively trying to destroy what we were doing as a house. And then long-term walked away from the church and are not on speaking terms with me. Like I burned those bridges because I was pushing those guys way too hard when they were not ready for it.
Yeah.
And I had to change a lot of that. The vigor, I mean, I pushed you guys pretty hard the next year and the year after, but not nearly like I pushed those first guys.
With a
and
different
you were way more bought
foundation
in
too.
than,
Yeah. I would say, trying to think early on too, we had a really pivotal conversation. I remember distinctly. I was a freshman in college, second semester. I had spent most of my waking hours in class or at the Foxhole. You know, I was effectively a house member, showing up to meetings, all that kind of stuff. And we sat down with a group of prospective house members and a group of guys from Pullman that were considering doing the same thing. And I remember a distinct moment. You were coming down really hard with vision, and you made a comment. You said, I don't know how many of you are in. And then you turned and you looked at me and you said, I know Steve's in. And that, you know, more than I realized it characterized some aspects of my leadership for the next couple years that were both in some ways helpful. Like I felt a call of responsibility to follow suit in certain things. And you know, it transferred from you expecting me to follow into other relationships I had, you know, all the way up until Matthew expecting me to be the guy to continue to follow suit. But one thing that I think I regret is I never felt like I had, in those early years, owned the leadership potential that I had been given. So what I mean by that is I didn't really have a desire early on to do anything more than what I could see in front of me. Yeah. And so I could see guys like you as a leader, and I wanted more than anything to follow suit, but I also wanted to like delve into the same kind of unrighteousness as you guys, because I wanted to be like you more than I wanted to be like Jesus. Right. And so, you know, a big part of my testimony before coming to Christ was utilizing like social systems to elevate myself, to feel a sense of love from the people around me. So I wanted to be the nice guy. I wanted to be the guy that stood out in sports. I wanted to be the guy that was a leader in the class, whatever it might be. And you know, our flesh is stubborn. And even after becoming a Christian, my heart was for Christ, but that aspect of wanting to be seen as the leader translated into the church. And so I was really green in my faith coming into college, and you know, I said yes to discipleship early on. I said yes to anything that was offered. Part of that God really used to change me, and part of that was because I saw the people above me and just wanted to follow suit. And so I think there's a lot of ways that, you know, I looked like a carbon copy of Preston Rhodes for a couple years, and you taught me a tremendous amount of stuff. And you know, I've enjoyed following you in so many ways my whole life, but I am not you. Right. And as I saw your failures of leadership, I use that as a license and an excuse to be like, I don't got to be better than that. That's the leader above me. And so that's probably one of my initial regrets. And that feeds into the next generation of guys to come after me too, and to recognize that I failed to take independent leadership. You know, so the Foxhole, you know, it was your brainchild in the beginning, and it didn't originate with you. I know, you know, you had sources as to how you wanted it to function. A big part of that was seeing elevate, not end. Right. And that's beautiful and that's great. But I thought to myself, you know, I'm the house leader now, but it's in motion. I don't, you know,
you were kind of in maintenance mode.
Yeah. I was the manager more than I was the leader early on. And so I regret that, and regret, you know, not listening to the spirit and conviction in regards to direction of things, because I saw the guys before me do things a certain way, and I thought, well, that was good enough, and that looks fun, and so I'll do that too. So
yeah, that's a good one. That's a good personal one. Another one I was thinking of, it was around our relationship with girls, with the girls' house. So we had Foxhole, and then it would have been the second year of Foxhole, I think. Some girls right down the street started a ministry house, kind of similar idea, but working symbiotically. And in those first 2 years of Foxhole, I think we just had we just weren't very aware of what what our influence was like to them, and what the way that we treated them was perceived by freshmen who were coming in, or even freshman girls who were coming in and seeing it. And so we were such good friends with these girls, and we, for the most part, thought of it as just friendship.
Right.
Meanwhile, in their eyes, maybe they're developing crushes and we're leading them on. We're not communicating clearly.
Right.
We're setting totally weird standards for these freshman girls because we think of these sophomore and junior girls as like, they're just our bros. We're just friends.
Right. Yeah.
And so we didn't have any of the proper boundaries, which ended up hurting the girls down the street a bunch.
Yep.
And then also creating some weird and potentially unhelpful or unhealthy examples for even the younger students to follow after.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so year 2 or 3, we had to institute some pretty rigid, here's what you can and can't do with girls in our house.
Yep.
And it was silly. Like, after this time, you can only sit in these places in the living room.
Right.
And here's the order of, you can't sit guy, girl. You have to sit on a couch of all guys if it's after this time at night.
Yep.
Just rigid stuff because we were trying to protect something that we didn't really understand. We knew what we were doing was wrong. We didn't know exactly why or how, or how to fix it. But I regret some of those early dynamics with the girls' house.
Yeah, it's just naive and foolish,
Right?
to think that, that the type of intimacy we shared with them wouldn't cause an unnatural or undesired connection or unintentional connection.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Any other regrets come to mind?
Oh man. Yeah.
Probably lots.
Yeah, there's a lot of little things. I think overall I wouldn't give those years back.
Yeah.
For really much of anything. We've talked over the years about the balance between allowing room for a conviction and like a genuine pursuit of what is right, as opposed to strong arming.
Mm-hmm.
We used a house checklist for a number of years to institute a very, very rigid and clear standard for how a man in the church and a man in the house should act. And I don't regret any of that.
Yeah.
We had to make changes over time, but I think in the young state of our lives, there's not many institutions that you don't have to give your years to that will produce that kind of rigid schedule and expectation. So, you think about how quickly the military instills discipline in people and things like that. And it's not sufficient for the whole breadth of maturity. But those things are really valuable. I know people that have gone to schools where they have a cadet program or an ROTC program that you don't even have to pledge yourself to the military to join, and they make better men because of their willingness to instill discipline. And we were probably misguided in some of it, but that was the heart of it, and I think that was really valuable too.
Yeah, the principle was that totally undisciplined 18-year-old boys need rigidity.
Absolutely.
They need a season of rigidity to develop some patterns and break out of some old habits. And then as they break out of those habits, they're allowed some more freedom to create their own life.
Definitely.
And I think somehow we understood that early on.
Yeah.
Like this rigidity is not good in the long term, but we got to do it for now.
Yeah. And I'm beginning to think, even as I get older and older, that rigidity is still helpful today.
I need a little more of it.
Yeah. The amount of times I come to the end of myself and just realize, I'm a man and I need to ask for help.
Yeah.
I need someone to hold me accountable today. And that's humbling, when you're leading a family in a church, but it's just true. Like if we want to make war on sin, if we want to honor Christ with our lives, then where we find ourselves too weak, we ask for help. And oftentimes that help is, you got to ask me this question, or I told you I'm going to do this. Can you force me to do it? Mm-hmm. And it feels silly, but to establish that early on is invaluable.
Yep.
Yeah.
I often think that, especially when I go back to Moscow and see it, or last weekend Moscow came to Missoula, they brought like 55 people, a bunch of Foxhole and all the the freshman ministry. So whenever I see it, I find myself thinking, somehow God, like, how good is God to us that in our foolishness and immaturity, and we didn't know what we were doing, but he allowed us to build something like this, something that survived for at least a decade, something that's seen a decade of tremendous fruit. We've got now over 100 guys who've come through the Foxhole system and have been seriously developed by it. And all of it came from, I was 19 and you were 18 when we pioneered this thing, and we didn't know what we were doing. But like I said, I think God was just really good to us and gracious to us, when probably what we deserved was to have it burn down around us 6 months in.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And the grace of God really showed up. I mean, we have significant friendships, like as close as family relationships with people who didn't know Jesus coming into college, because God used our flawed endeavor to reveal the gospel to them. Yeah. I think about the infectious type of community that is provided in the life of the Christian. And there is no more extreme example that I have witnessed in my life than seeing college students live out that sort of lifestyle.
Yeah. 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 And I think about even just in my personal life, what God has done through Foxhole. My wife was saved through the ministry of Foxhole. Mm-hmm. I didn't know I was going to get teary-eyed in a podcast recording. Yeah. My best friend in Missoula, Jared Dethridge, was saved in the ministry of Foxhole. Multiple of my other best friends today were saved in the ministry of Foxhole. Like, just incredible stuff that
I remember
to happen through.
I remember before Tracy got saved, we had a different relationship then.
Me and you?
No, me and her.
Yeah, you did.
She picked on me like crazy. Yeah. She was tough as nails, and yeah.
Me and you did too. There was some strife because I was in love quick.
That's true.
Way too quick. And you were one of the few guys that were like, "Hey, pump the brakes on this."
That was that was a couple years of getting myself out of the, anything my leaders above me do is permissible. Yeah. And I remember that for sure. Yeah.
I remember. I'll just tell the story. I don't care. I remember before we officially started dating, and I took her on a secret date, and I kissed her and took a picture of it. I had a Polaroid picture of it, and you guys at the house meeting didn't know, and I passed the picture around to everybody, and we got like 10 guys in there jumping and hooting and hollering and slamming on the walls. And they're so pumped, and you were furious. You're just glaring daggers at me from across the room, and you were right, and I knew you were right.
Yeah. No one else thought I was right.
Yeah, I passed the picture around as a preamble to my confession, but everybody was pumped about it.
Yeah, I remember that. That was a vivid memory of a house meeting, and I think to Jared Dethridge's credit too, he was locked arms with me a little bit there.
That's true.
But I looked like a piece of work, not cheering you on.
Yeah, because I'd been crushing on this girl for 8 months at that point.
Right.
And she said it in the right direction. But it was too early, and I didn't do it in the right way by any stretch of the imagination. So yeah, you guys, that's a good example of a iron sharpening iron. You guys held the line.
Right.
And stood up even against me as your huddle leader, house leader, elder.
Right. And I was sobbing like a baby at your wedding. So it was, there's a time to celebrate and a time to hold the line.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And then even to think of we knew each other in high school, but to be best men at each other's weddings, largely through the ministry of Foxhole, the friendship we developed in those years. I was thinking just a minute ago, like, I see you twice a year, this event and ResCon.
Yep.
And still, I walk in a room yesterday, I haven't seen you in 6 months, and I don't even think, I need to go shake Steve's hand. It's like, it's Steve. Steve's part of the family. I see him every day because I still feel that close, even though we're far apart.
Yeah, it's a different kind of bond for sure. Feels like, the purest sense of the word brotherhood.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I always talk to Nicole, my wife, about our relationship, and it's peculiar. We don't text each other. We seldom call each other. Yeah. We see each other work related stuff fairly frequently, but
Zoom meetings.
We're not talking to each other. We're talking about whatever's the task at hand. But I feel the same way. And she's always asking me, "Did you get some time with Preston?" And yes and no.
Right.
We stayed up talking theology way into the night with someone else, but it's seldom we're talking super personal.
I guarantee when I get home, Tracy will ask,
same
you get
question.
to hang out with Steve? How's his family doing? How's his... I'm like, I don't know any of that stuff. Why would I ask that question?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, cool relationships. Well, maybe we'll close with a couple funny stories.
Okay.
You got any in the
oh,
hopper?
Man.
Well, I'll tell one. There's a viral video 8 or 10 years ago, the peanut butter baby video.
Yep.
This little baby covered head to toe in peanut butter.
Uh-huh.
So we recreated the peanut butter baby. If you know who, then you know who. I don't need to share that detail, but covered a grown man head to toe
in peanut butter,
in gallons of peanut butter, and then had other men lick peanut butter off of him. And it was a great time, great video, great memory. So that was a fun time. And then last weekend, Foxhole guys came to Missoula. We have a house ministry now, Firewatch, guys that are running some of the same plays. And I get to church on Sunday, and they're like, "Check out this video." And they had 2 guys do the peanut butter baby.
No way.
In Missoula.
That's funny.
It was pretty funny. They're out. They're like, "We don't want to ruin the shower in our rental," so they went out in the backyard at 3 a.m.
hosed them off,
and hosed each other off. And it does. I mean,
you
peanut butter
peanut
with
butter
ice cold
off.
water,
Absolutely
it's not coming
not.
off at all.
Yeah.
So finally, they had to go get in the shower together and wash each other down.
Yeah. Yeah, I got a lot of good memories like that. Trips we took together, and memories and stuff that came out of that. Some fond memories, not so much funny, are just some of the events we did over the years as a house. Like the amount of things we could do by leveraging relatively little finances together was something else. I think about, the events our church in Reno puts on now, and they're more polished. The equipment's much better. They're great events. Mm-hmm. But what we could do to just rally a crowd was so unbelievable. We were reflecting. We hosted 2017 maybe. We hosted the Manny Pacquiao Floyd Mayweather fight, and it was one of the coolest events to this day that I have ever attended. Yeah. And we didn't know what we were doing. I remember scrambling 20 minutes before people started showing up to figure out how we were going to get the TVs plugged in, how we were going to make sure that everything could stream things perfectly. And
I remember we had to go to Best Buy to get a powered HDMI splitter.
Yep.
Because we needed to split the HDMI 4 ways. We had a projector and 3 flat screens spread throughout the house to show all the people. Projector on the outside wall of the house.
Yep.
So we got a powered HDMI splitter, and then had 400 or 500 people in our house and in our yard watching this fight.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really something special. And, I don't know that anything crazy came out of that event, but just the idea that a bunch of dumb kids in college could put on an event like that I don't, I wouldn't expect anybody to put on with that sort of efficacy with that little. Yeah. So that, the ability to rally people and resources together on a whim is something that I still benefit from today. Mm-hmm. Like, we host in our house all the time, and it doesn't feel stressful. Yeah. Like, I think of so many families and people I know that it takes them a couple days to prepare to have people over, and we can invite, a dozen or 2 dozen people over an hour before, and it just feels natural. Yeah. It feels like that's the way we live, and show people our lives. And so, just some really special, unseen fruit that has come of the kind of lifestyle we lived. And then I'll tell one more story. This was really impactful for me. When I was a freshman in college, I remember so vividly the first week of school, because it was unlike anything I had ever experienced. I remember it was a Tuesday, and I had class all day. I got home from class, spent some time playing sand volleyball with a bunch of my friends outside of the dorms, and then I went to Foxhole that night, and we had chicken Alfredo pasta with
Every
penne
night.
noodles drenched in tapatio because it was so watered down.
We would just
And,
take the frozen bag of like Tyson chicken
Yep.
breasts and dump them in a vat of boiling water.
Yep.
And that was the chicken. That's how we cooked all of our
Yep.
chicken for years.
And then later that night, we all hung out in a room together, and a bunch of people that were really talented at playing guitar and drums just were jamming out together. That was unlike anything I'd ever seen before. And then climbed out of the window of that room to go jump on the trampoline and then look up at the stars, and then got to lay on the trampoline until 3 a.m. talking with some of the people that became my closest friends about parts of my life that I had never really even thought to tell somebody about.
Right.
And so I remember coming home to my dorm room that night. It was like 3 a.m. I had class at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I thought to myself, is this what life is like?
Yeah.
Is this what life is supposed to be like? I have never experienced like this sort of enjoyment in such a wholesome way, to be known by people, to feel like I'm a part of something significant immediately.
Mm-hmm.
So I think about that moment a lot, and I think about like the amount of people that were given the opportunity to experience that because of relatively simple sacrifice from a group of dudes.
Yeah.
It's pretty special.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. That's cool to hear. I think about, here's a funny one that's not nearly as meaningful.
Sure.
Every Thanksgiving, you're going to know immediately the story I'm about to tell. Every Thanksgiving, we would make a big old ham for our Friendsgiving. You already know where this is going. So we could, you make the big old ham bone and you eat off it for Friendsgiving. And then I would always make ham and bean soup. So you boil whatever's left of the ham, boil it forever. And then you got the hard work of picking the meat and separating it from like the bone and the gristle and the fat chunks and the kind of the gross pieces. And so I did all that work and separated it out and made the ham and bean soup. And then I was like, well, we have a dog. We had a house dog at the time. And so I was like, I'll keep all the gristle bits and we can use it as a treat for Django. And I put it in a Tupperware and put it in the fridge. And the next day, come back from class. I'm like, I'll give Django a treat. And I open the fridge and the Tupperware's gone. and so that night when all the roommates get back, I'm like, hey, did one of you guys throw away that tub of Django's food? And one roommate, he goes, you mean the tub of ham in the fridge? I said, yeah. I put that in my eggs this morning. It was great. Was that not, were we not supposed to eat that? And he had just eaten straight bone and tendon and fat chunk
Nasty.
in his eggs and thought it was great.
Yeah, that's horrible.
He had no problems. That same guy one time, I think you were mainly the one involved in this story. You saw him putting like one piece of bread and then a pound of peanut butter on it. Yeah. And you're like, what are you doing? And he says, well, I know we're trying to save money as a house, so I thought I should use less bread and just use more peanut butter.
Yeah.
And you're like, you've never been shopping, have you? You don't know what things cost.
Yeah.
Use more bread.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, that guy had all sorts of weird eating habits. I remember I would just be so frustrated to see his choice of food. At one time I walked into the kitchen and he had a whole bowl of dried oats, and I watched him prepare it. So he fills this whole bowl. And if you have a whole bowl, like a cereal bowl of dried oats, that is an unbelievable amount of oats.
Right.
And I watched him. I'm like, what is he going to do with all these oats? I watched him go over to the sink, and he turns on the faucet for half a second and like just gets enough water in there to like scare the oatmeal. Right. And then he puts it in the microwave. And I'm like, no way this is what's happening. And he puts it in there for 30 seconds. He takes it out and he stirs it up. And I looked at him, and then he just starts eating it. And I thought to myself,
like mildly warm.
I thought to myself, this
oatmeal.
is a prank. Like, this is a joke. Like that guy who puts beans in computers. It's that guy. Like,
yeah.
And so I asked him, what on earth are you doing? And he said, I just like to warm them up. And I said, you know what these are? These are oats. Like, this is just going to expand in your stomach. If you would have put enough water in this, it would have grown 4 times its size. Right. Unbelievable amount of food. And,
right.
luckily oats are cheap, so it wasn't the peanut butter situation. But yeah, unreal.
Yeah, he had no idea what he was doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun stories. I think about how I mainly did this to harass you, but anytime I was driving around and found a dead squirrel on the road, I would stop the car and pick the squirrel up, and then when I got home, I would usually put it in your car somewhere. So hang it on the steering wheel, shove it under the gas pedal so that when you start the car, you can't. You got to stomp on it. One time we hung it right outside the girls' house, right outside the front door, so one of them walked straight into it.
Yeah, I remember that.
We did a lot of roadkill.
Yeah, some nasty stuff for sure, but we have some good memories from that too. I got a video on my phone I watch about once every year of some science experiments.
Yeah. Every roadkill animal would end up being pitched off the top of the roof and exploding on the concrete below. Yeah. The road-killed porcupine that we put in one of our guys' rooms.
Yep.
That was one of the best days.
Yeah, one of the most legendary stories. Yeah. We launched a lot of stuff off that roof.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it was funny. Any other funny stories come to mind? I mean, I have a bunch in my mind that I could tell. But.
Yeah. I was thinking about Gary recently.
Yeah.
You remember Gary?
Yeah.
So the whole roadkill bit jogs my memory a little bit, but some of the guys, Preston included, found a pheasant. It was a pheasant, right? Mm-hmm. Pheasant on the road that had been hit or something. It was injured, and brought it home. Tried to see if you guys could nurse it back to health, and it didn't go so well. The pheasant died, and they decided, well, let's make this pheasant a part of the house. And so the pheasant was named Gary, and one of the boys harvested Gary and turned him into some chicken nuggets. Mm-hmm. And then
they were terrible.
Yeah, they were awful. They were really bad. Yeah, particularly bad. And then we preserved Gary's talons. Mm-hmm. And so for a while we had Gary's talons hanging up over our kitchen sink, and it was Gary. It represented Gary, and I thought it would be hilarious to give Gary more of a persona. And so every time someone would get a package to the house and the package was unclaimed, I would take a steak knife and I would mar the outside of the package, like just mutilate the thing. And then I would stick one of Gary's talons, and we created this whole persona around Gary that he hated unclaimed packages. Yeah. And so anytime someone didn't open something immediately, Gary would tear it up and he would leave his talons in it. So that was a funny memory.
Yeah, Gary was fun. I was just thinking of the time that we had I don't remember which young lady it was, but a freshman girl that had been coming around the house a whole bunch, and her parents were in town, and she thought, I should have my parents drive over to Foxhole and just check it out and see this thing that I talk about all the time. And so she pulls up in her car with her parents, nice little young Christian gal, and we are all shirtless. We're on the roof, and we're playing a game we had made up where we had an old flat screen TV, so we laid the flat screen TV in the backyard, and then we were on the roof with a leaf rake trying to javelin the rake into the TV. So her parents pull up, and we're all these grown adult shirtless men javelining a rake off the roof, and her parents lost some trust.
Yeah, rightfully
in us, right from the get go.
Yeah,
that day.
Yeah, we had all sorts of stuff happen outside that for the public's viewing. Fire trucks called in different scenarios, and a lot of fun.
Yep, good times.
Yeah.
Well, Steve, it was fun to talk to you about the Foxhole stuff. Any encouragement you would give to, I have a house of guys in Missoula that are trying it out, and they're in their first year, and they're doing a really good job, but there's still a lot of stuff that I think as they grow into it, as they figure out who they want to be, I expect things will change and grow over the years. And then you probably have some guys that you're hoping will move that direction at some point or catch a vision for it. Any encouragements you would give?
Yeah, I think my encouragement is that the lasting fruit around evangelistic efforts that we saw early on, I don't think those are guaranteed. I think there's something about the radical lifestyle being lived that gives a level of potency to the real gospel that people can tangibly see. Right. I think that is valuable, but I think even more valuable is the diligence to do all the stuff we were talking about with the type of lifestyle we live towards each other as guys. And so, whether or not it is the thing that changes the landscape of the community, you host the biggest events, or the church blows up as a result of your efforts, none of that really matters as much as the amount of effort you put towards living out the kind of sacrificial lifestyle that you will not be able to replicate later in life if you've not had that kind of experience, or at least it gets much more difficult, is so worth it. That's the aspect that I wouldn't trade for the world. I have close friends who came to know Jesus in that time as a part of what we were doing. But much more than that, I think back to, why am I the way I am? Mm-hmm. And it was because of those hours and days and months and years of going to war with each other and having to take responsibility for guys that wouldn't take it for themselves, having to bear the weight of, the implications of how much influence we were given, and the countless conversations around things that would have only transpired if there was no place to hide. Yeah, that is so valuable, just to know that there's no escaping your crap. Mm-hmm. Like your boys are going to see it, they're going to call it out. You're held to a standard, and you're going to have to go to bat for it. So my encouragement to anybody who wants to do it is, the harder it becomes, the more you're going to be made into a man who can lead, and who can, lead in all sorts of different facets. Right.
Yeah, it's almost like, do your future wife a favor. Absolutely. Do something hard now. Subject yourself to something that's uncomfortable and difficult, because it's going to pay off in spades later on. Yeah, that's good. I was thinking, my mind went back to the just how men need a space to be men with other men. Yeah. And how lacking, even saying that probably feels a little bit taboo or a little bit offensive today, because we've so denigrated masculine virtues, masculine characteristics, where we just equate masculine tendencies with sinful, and then feminine tendencies with holy and righteous. So I remember an illustration somebody used in a book. If imagine you're a teacher in a public school, and you see two girls, two high school girls interacting in the hallway, and one girl comes up and says, "Hey, I'm not really sure why you did that. I don't think what you did is it was a great idea. I don't really think you should have." And she has her hand on her arm and being very sweet and gentle. I love you so much, and I just don't want you to make mistakes like that. As a teacher, you think, "Oh, what sweet Christian girls. These girls are wonderful." And then you look across the hall and you see a boy grab another boy, shove him in the locker. What'd you do that for, you idiot? Why are you acting like that? And in most of our minds, we would think, "Oh, look at those immature boys who are, sinful and wicked and acting foolish and aggressive." But those boys and girls are doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. They're just doing it in distinctly feminine and masculine ways. Yeah, they're calling the sin out of each other. They're encouraging each other, and they're doing it in ways that the other sex doesn't understand, can't comprehend. Right. But it's equally valuable. And so for young men, I think, just find and embrace an environment where you can be treated like a man, spoken to like a man, forced to act and think like a man. Absolutely. Like somebody's gonna speak hard to you, and you don't get to shut down. You don't get to feel judged. You just don't get to do that stuff. It's time to be a man. So you face the music, face the consequences of your actions, and step up, move on from it. And again, learning that kind of thing early on is going to pay dividends. Yeah, faithful are the wounds of a friend. Right. And I think it is even more true with men. Right. Yep. So I hope any guys listening to this will just seek out those kind of friendships and those kind of environments and hold each other to that standard. And you can do it while still being kind and gracious, and like you don't throw that stuff out the window. But men need a space to be men. It's good for them.
Absolutely.
Well, Steve, it's been a good time.
Yep.
Any closing thoughts?
Oh man, fresh out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fun to talk about. We could do it'd be fun to get Jerry in here. Jerry's a good storyteller.
Yeah.
Get a couple more guys in here and just tell stories.
Yeah.
Do a whole episode of just the old Foxhole stories.
Yeah. If you know Jerry, ask him about the incident with the trash truck.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Ask him about the Duke.
Yeah, maybe not.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of stories just came to mind that you probably shouldn't ask.
Yeah,
anybody
that's
about.
for sure.
Yeah. Oh, good stuff. Well, thanks for sitting down and talking.
Yeah,
about it.
it's a pleasure.
Good time. See ya.
See ya.